Oh yeah, definitely. I truly appreciate you. But I could relate because like you say, like when I was in Latin America studying, it wasn't commonly talked about. Because when I kept talking about it, people were like, I don't know. And then I'm like, okay, maybe I'm tripping. I'm gonna be quiet. And I waited like maybe a couple days, and then they wanted to talk about it more. The students was looking at me like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "Nah, I don't want to say nothing." But you could tell that they, for a long time, some things that had been on their mind and they wanted to address them. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, Taye, he thinks it's a race problem in the DR." I'm like, "It's a race problem everywhere that's been colonized. And you got black people that's been enslaved for hundreds of years, and then when slavery ended, they don't have no clothes, no shelter, no food, no education, no tools, no equipment. So
Mhm.
a lot of Black Americans think that that only happened in America when the reality is in Latin America, it happened 90% of the slave trade is where it happened at. So that's very important. See, now you mentioned you got another book. You got some other books out.
Well, yes, I like to call this the new book that's coming out is like uh part three of the trilogy. Right? Like good, like all good science fiction that's based in like reality is a trilogy. Right. So the first book was called Racial Subordination in Latin America. Right. So that was a lot of the detail that I just shared with you about sort of how anti-blackness shows up within Latin America, and also what has been the journey of these Afro-Latin social justice movements who are trying to change that, right? So I call it, racial subordination in Latin America and the new civil rights response. So that was part one of the trilogy. Part two then shifted gears and looked just at the United States and how Latin American ways of excusing racism by talking about, oh, we're all mixed race, so we don't know blackness because we're all mixed. How that kind of language discourse was starting to appear in the United States with regards to multiracial identity, mixed race identity. So the second book sort of uses the Latin America frame to try to understand what's going on with this idea of multiracial identity and what I call the misperception that multiracial experiences of discrimination are somehow different than what regular Black people experience. Let's put it that way. And I wanted this book to sort of unmask that. That while people's identities may be very fluid, you may have all kinds of things that are part of what your identity, what makes up your personal identity, that when you experience discrimination, it is unfortunately a very crude experience. That's why it's not something we like, right? It's discrimination. And when that happens, it doesn't happen because you're mixed. It happens because of some part of the mixture that is viewed as detestable. More often than not, blackness. Right? So I sort of use the background of having analyzed Latin America and mixed race language and excuse making to unpack what's happening with multiracial identity in part two. And now part three of the trilogy brings those two things together to look at Latinos in the United States and how they try to get away with their discrimination in housing, in education, in employment, etc., right? By saying, oh, I excluded that Black person, but that wasn't about racism because I can't be biased because I am Latino. Right? It's like a pseudo defense to discrimination. I'm Latino, so I'm mixed, so I can't possibly have caused this discrimination. So this new book, it's called Racial Innocence: Unmasking Latino Anti-Black Bias and the Struggle for Equality. This is the part three of the trilogy that tries to sort of like educate the population, Latinos and the rest of the United States alike, um, about this growing problem. Latinos are growing in number, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be a more racially enlightened space if we do not intervene directly and call out the anti-blackness that exists, and try to make it part of the solution, right, to pursuing equality. Right? Right? If we only look at white Anglo people, we are then missing out on all the other folks in our nation that support and sustain white supremacy. Right? It doesn't stand up all alone just because white Anglos are holding it up. It's because there's a bunch of other silent, non-whites who were there. Oh, okay, are holding it up as well. And so in order to really directly attack that, you have to name it, right, in order to be able to do something about it.
Okay. Wow, this was a phenomenal episode, very enlightening. Thank you so much for the work that you are doing and continue to do. Um, Definitely let the viewers know one more time where they could get the book. So I want to make sure that they get it and check you out and support you.
The book is available right now for pre-order. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Barnes and Nobles. You can get it at indiebound.org or independent bookstores. I'll actually be at a couple of bookstores. If you want to know about sort of either meet me in person or meet me virtually, I can tell you a little bit about that as well. So I'll just go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, you got it.
Wonderful. So the places I'm going to be starting in August, if you're in the DC area, I'm just looking at my little schedule right here. In DC, I will be at Politics and Prose on August 27th at 5 p.m. If you are in New York, Brooklyn, I will be in a book called Café con Libros, an Afro-Latinx feminist bookstore is how the Café con Libros describe themselves. That's going to be on September 7th. And that will be, I think, will be a virtual event. But I'll be in person in New York City on September 15th, the start of Hispanic Heritage Month. Though this will be a very interesting kind of start to Hispanic Heritage Month. Let's talk about anti-Blackness within Latino communities at Fordham Race Law Center. It's an open event, September 15th at 6 p.m.
All right, all right. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. It's been another episode of Taye Speaks. So until next time, family. Peace.
Thank you.
You're welcome.